Jimmy Johnson, the Hall of Famer, is now joining us live from the Keys, Fox NFL Sunday. I will say this. I don't know if you know, you know so many of these coaches. I don't know if you know Doug Peterson, but I said this earlier, Jimmy. The hardest thing in the world is to find a star quarterback, and the second thing is to find a star coach. I don't know if you know Doug, but I think it's pretty exciting. I watch them, and I'm like, okay, is this the young kind of, I'm not saying Andy Reid here, but boy, Trevor Lawrence and Doug, it looks like it works to me, Jimmy.
Yeah, without question. I was really impressed with Trevor Lawrence. And, of course, we all were excited about him coming out of college and disappointed last year. But he has come on strong here for the last couple of months and looks like he's going to be a franchise quarterback for them for a long time.
Listen, you're friends with Belichick. I understand he's lost a lot of coordinators. He lost Josh McDaniels. But, Jimmy, this sport, I said it earlier, technology and football are very fluid. They change fast. They just don't have a feel for it. Like, what do you do? I mean, is it Mac Jones? Is it Bill? What do you see?
I think what Bill Belichick's doing right now, he's trying to make the best out of what he has, not only with his coaching staff, but also with his players, with the roster that he's got. They're not a super talented team.
No.
And some of their talent is young. And so I think he's trying to make the best of what he's got. And, a lot of people are criticizing him because of the offensive philosophy right now. But if you don't have the players on offense, what's the best way you can win? And the best way for you to win is not turn it over, not make mistakes, and play good defense. And so a lot of what he's doing is because of the talent on the roster.
It's interesting, though, Jimmy. You were really good with personnel. You were good in college. A lot of your players were 3-star guys, and you made pros. And, Zach Thomas and guys that were overlooked. Bill's a great coach. He has not had a ton of success drafting offense. Is it a fair criticism to say sometimes, Jimmy, you get too much power, and he's probably not relinquished some of the drafting power?
Well, I don't know if it's too much power. I know, when I went to the Dolphins, it was overwhelming for me because I was trying to be general manager and head coach.
Yeah.
That was my title. But during the season, with the salary cap and with free agency, I didn't have time, to see who's on the street. And with today's football, you're going to have to pick up players throughout the year. You're going to have to play rookies. You're going to have to play free agents. You're going to have to pick up players off of other teams, either with trades or people that have been released. And so you've got to have help, as far as your people in your building, and you can't do it all by yourself.
So Commanders-Giants last night, people are complaining about officiating. Do you think the Washington fans had a point in terms of, the receiver looks at the official, the official says, that's not my responsibility to get you lined up. How did you interpret that?
Well, a lot of times it's just out of courtesy. If the receiver lines up and he points at the official might tell him to move up or something. But it's the receiver's responsibility to line up on the line of scrimmage. Obviously, the receiver did not feel like he was lined up right, or he wouldn't have kept looking over there. And then once they started in motion, he knew he was wrong because he wasn't lined up on the line of scrimmage.
So
that's the receiver's fault. But as far as the other complaints about the officiating, I always told our team, I said, you've got to be good enough to overcome bad officiating calls. There's going to be poor officiating calls in every game. And if you study the film, you're going to say, hey, there was holding here, there was holding there. That should have been interference. I told our players, don't ever, ever complain about the officiating. You be good enough to overcome bad officiating.
Okay, I've told my audience that's exactly what I think, is if it comes down to an official's call, then you couldn't put the team away. So Saturday night, you live down in Florida. And yesterday, Jimmy, I watched Trevor Lawrence, Burrow, Herbert, Mahomes, Allen on Saturday literally overcome injuries, a blizzard, bad halves, and they carried their teams to win. I'm not disputing. I mean, I look at Miami and you go play Josh Allen, and I think to myself, if I ran the Dolphins, I got to face that 2 times a year minimum. I mean, I'm sorry, Jimmy. That if you were in your division, and I mean, not the guys that had to face you and Aikman, good luck. What do you do if you're Miami at quarterback?
Well, first of all, you don't ever get rid of somebody until you find somebody better.
Okay.
And you make the best of what you've got. And I think that's what Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel's done. They're making the best out of what they have with Tua. No, Tua is not Joe Burrow, and Tua is not Herbert. He is not Josh Allen. But if you give him the right supporting cast, Tua can win for you. And so you make the best of what you have. And right now, franchise quarterbacks are hard to find.
Yeah.
And even pretty good quarterbacks are hard to find. You look around the league, about half of them, really, some of them can't play a lick. And so, you really got to do the best out of what you have until you find something better.
Jimmy Johnson, the Hall of Famer, joining us. Jimmy, somebody else said this, so it's not mine, but they said a coach has to be authentic because the players will sniff you out in a second. And, sometimes Dan Campbell will say things at the podium, and I'll be like, oh, brother. But I'll tell you what, when you watch the Lions, it feels like they buy into Dan's messaging. What do you see?
I love what Dan Campbell's doing. And, people say, well, these guys are getting paid umpteen $1 million. You shouldn't have to motivate them. Let me assure you, you need to motivate them. Maybe the top 8 or 10 on your roster, maybe they're self-motivated, but they still need some motivation. Every company brings in motivational speakers for their top executives. Everybody needs to be motivated. But I tell you where Dan Campbell's done the job. He's motivated that bottom half of the roster. Because I promise you, some of those knuckleheads, they need to be motivated. And Dan Campbell, and that's the key. There's some outstanding coaches out there, X's and O's, and, they can scheme and they can do this and that. But if they're not motivating the bottom half of that roster, then you're not going to get the best out of your organization, and your team's not going to improve. You look at the Detroit Lions, they have improved and got toughness from day one. And it's because of Dan Campbell.
No, Jimmy, that's a great point. So let's go back to Dallas. Anything about the loss? I didn't think the interception was Dak's fault. It was a bad bounce. But was there anything about it you're a little concerned about as we kind of get close to the playoffs?
Sometimes they get a little bit cute. You run the football, they take a timeout. You run the football, you take a timeout, and then you try to throw a bomb on them. And they saved their timeout. You gotta manage the game. Make sure they don't have any timeouts. That way they won't have time to go ahead and take it back down the field. But I am concerned about Prescott because when he has got pressure on him, and I promise you the Philadelphia Eagles will put pressure on him.
Right.
When he's got pressure on him, sometimes that ball comes out and it's an interception. That's what the problem he's having right now.
Yeah.
So if they don't protect him here Saturday, those interceptions could show up again.
Finally, Jimmy, I as a coach would have taken a knee and gone to overtime. I don't love all this lateral stuff. I don't like it. It's just too. It looks like Thanksgiving with your relatives. I don't like it at all. What do you? I know sometimes you have to. What do you make of that stuff?
It was simple at the end of the game with the Raiders and the Patriots. Either take a knee and go to overtime. Because if you hand it to the running back, he is not going to go 70 yards for a touchdown. Now, if you want to take a chance, let's heave it down the field.
Right.
Maybe you'll get a pass interference and have a chance to kick a field goal. But you either take a knee or you heave it all the way down the field.
What's the worst loss you ever had? Did you ever have a loss like that or anything in your college, high school coaching, NFL career that was literally, I felt when Belichick walked over, I thought I had sympathy. I thought that's that Nick Saban loss to Auburn. Remember that a few years ago? I'm like,
on the field goal.
Oh, it was awful.
Yep.
Did you ever have one of those?
I had a loss where we had nearly 500 yards of offense. The opponent had 180. They had one first down the second half had 8 first downs the entire game and beat us 14-10 because we turned it over 7 times.
Oh.
Yeah, I remember that game.
Was that Oklahoma State your first year?
That was Penn State for the national championship.
Okay, all right. There we go. Jimmy, it's great. The Hall of Famer, Jimmy Johnson. The book is called Swagger. Get it on Amazon. Great, great stories as always. Fox NFL Sunday crew, #1 for years. Good seeing you, Coach. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.